Could you tell us all your name again, please?
All right.
Some of them don't even know from the first time.
Okay, so my name is Darren Lamb. The way that this class has been set up, there used to be a Zen temple here in Salt Lake, and unfortunately it closed about maybe 5 years ago. And when that happened, the Zen community just kind of disintegrated and there wasn't anything left to practice. And so a while ago I kind of got caught in my own trap. I said, God, it'd be really great if somebody started up a Zen meditation class. And then I realized I'm somebody. So whenever you hear that happening in your life, whenever you hear somebody saying like, oh, it'd be really great if somebody did that, that's usually a way of the universe telling you, hey, you're probably a really good person to do this, so go ahead and start that. So that's kind of how this class started. We're basically just seeing if there is an interest in the Zen meditation or any other type of meditation practice and stuff, and to kind of try to rebuild the community and see where it goes from there, if that makes sense of where this is. So, since there's a lot of new people here, let me kind of tell you how this class works. What I do, every time we come, I try to give you a different type of meditation to practice. So, meditation is hard enough as it is. So if you only have like one technique to do it, and for some reason that technique doesn't work for you or is unpleasant or just doesn't click with you, I want you to have more things to fall back on. You know, like, as you guys know, we're in a martial arts studio. So a really common problem in martial arts is somebody will join a particular system and then not like that system because it's not what they were looking for, you know, when they had the idea of what a martial art is. And so they just quit altogether rather than, let's just move to a different system and it will get me what I want. They just don't know what to do. So with that, what we're going to ask you guys to do is start a meditation practice. How many people here have a meditation practice going? Like an active meditation. Great, okay. All right, so a big myth that happens when people want to start meditation is they think, oh, I have to do it for this big block of time. I have to have this big chunk carved out for my meditation. Like, if I'm not doing at least an hour a day, somehow I'm a lesser meditator. I'm not a really real meditator. And it doesn't have to be that way. You know, even if you can do just like a few moments throughout the day, just a couple of moments of little mindfulness, stop at a red light, paying attention to what's going on with the traffic, just taking a few clearing breaths, connecting with everything, it can make all the difference in the world. Okay, I talk about this a lot. Like, this is the world we live in. This is so sad. I was looking at a Pop-Tart box the other day, and they have directions on the Pop-Tart box, if you guys didn't know this, okay, if you can't figure this out. And there's more than one way to cook a Pop-Tart, okay? They have a microwave technique for making a Pop-Tart. In case the toaster is too slow for you, you can microwave the Pop-Tart and get it going, okay? I personally believe if you don't have the time to toast your Pop-Tart, that might be a place to start, you know. So with your meditation practice, what we're going to ask everybody to do is try to do at least 5 minutes a day. Just 5 minutes a day, okay? If you can do more, great, but at least get that 5 minutes in. If you can't get that 5 minutes in, if your life is so incredibly jam-packed and busy that you cannot find 5 minutes, that's a really good place for you to start looking at your life, okay? If you're the microwave Pop-Tart person, all right, start checking that out. So, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about a technique called Vipassana meditation. And what Vipassana is, it's all about our sensory awareness. Has anybody here ever done any type of Vipassana meditation before? Will this be new to everybody? Nobody's done this? Great. Okay, cool. One thing that is a little sad, though, is Vipassana, it's a little bit of a complex technique. So trying to learn it in this one little hour class, especially from somebody as inept as me, that's probably not the best way to go. So the way that it's normally taught is you sign up for a 10-day course where you go and you're meditating for 10 to 12 hours a day for 10 days, and they teach you this technique, and it's really great, and it works, and it's effective. They've had lots of success in prisons and returning soldiers who are facing PTSD, struggling with that. Vipassana's been great for that. Sadly, it's really difficult for a lot of people to commit to that length of a time, like 10 days away from anything. And when you're there, you are in total seclusion. No cell phone, no nothing. You can't talk to people. You are alone in there. And some people, that's a little daunting when they want to do this. But the technique is so great, I want you guys to be sure that you guys have it and that you guys can at least experiment with it without having to go through the hell of this. And I'll kind of tell you a little bit about my experience with it and how Vipassana works, and then we'll try a little bit of it. So one problem is that with our sensory input, this is kind of how our brains process all the information that comes to us. We see things, we hear things, we touch things, we smell things. We get all this type of information coming at us through our senses. And when this happens, there's two very important steps that we need to take with this information that most people don't. Whatever our senses give to us, a lot of times we just accept that blindly. Like, oh, okay, great, I feel this, I see this, therefore it must be true. And once we started learning Vipassana, we find out none of it is true, and it's horrible. So when it does, it goes back to the perception, how we see things, how we think of things, how we have a tendency to make every single thing that happens about us when it doesn't have anything to do with us, and yeah, just this whole connection thing that happens. Hello, kick off your shoes, come on in, join us. So the two things that we have to ask ourselves when this sensory information comes at us is, one, is this true? Is what I'm seeing, what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling, is this true? And the second is, what is this trying to tell me? What is this information trying to convey to me? Okay? Very few people take those two steps to do this. So if we look at the what is true, all right, so there's philosopher Rene Descartes, okay, he had this theory that our sensory input matters more than the source material, or God, for example. Okay, what we're seeing, what we're feeling, what we're experiencing is more than that. So, in philosophy terms, a bad joke, we call that putting Descartes before the source. Right. So, horribly bad joke. But on that, if we can kind of look at our senses for a little bit, like say for example these mats that are on the wall here behind us. If I were to ask any of you, what color is that mat? Unless you're some weird philosopher, colorblind, something like that, you're going to say, Darren, the mat's blue. Come on, let's do this. Everybody knows the mat is blue. But the very base reality of this is the way that our eyes work. Our eyes reflect light rays. This is how it works. So what is happening is this mat is absorbing all the light rays except for the ones that we perceive as blue. And it's reflecting that back to us. So when we see it, we say, it's blue. Does this make sense? And if you ever want to see something frighteningly just scary, find something where it has... If you happen to read my book, Ronin Buddhism, there's a chart in this about this. But look at the spectrum of rays that exist and how many are perceivable to us it's just this tiny, tiny, tiny little sliver of it. So like all this stuff is happening that we're not perceiving. So when we look at the map, and we do this, oh, it's blue, okay? And when we kind of can look at it through the light rays stuff, I can see that. But then if we can kind of throw a little bit of Zen at it, we can ask ourselves, okay, so if the light rays weren't happening, like say for example there wasn't light to reflect any of that coming back to us, what color are these mats? Does it have a color? Is there no color? And if there is no color, what color would that be? You know, so we can just take it and we can just run with it. And so this is kind of where Vipassana takes us, where we look at things, and it can be a little daunting because we're looking at things like says, the mat's not blue. Okay, it's like that scene in Liar, Liar, you know, where he has the pen, and he's trying to, the pen is blue, you know. It can be a little frustrating with this. So, one thing that can happen, this is something where Vipassana kicked in, and this helped with some veterans groups that I was working with. I used to be a student up at the University of Utah. And before then, I was a soldier. And when I would park my car in the parking lot, and then you'd have to walk clear across campus to go to your car, and it would take a good long time to get there. Well, I had this sensation that was happening all the time. I would park my car, and by the time I walked to my class, by the time I got to my class, I was a ball of rage. I was just completely on-edged and primed and ready to go. And I never knew why. You know, and it was just kind of frustrating. So I would sit there in class the whole time trying to figure out, why am I so anxious? Why am I so pissed? Why am I ready to go? Why am I ready to fight? And then I'd eventually start to calm down. And then class ends and I have to walk back to my car. And when I get back to my car, I'm a ball of rage again. And I can't figure out what's going on. I can't figure this out. So at a veterans meeting, and another kid started to talk about this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not completely crazy. Or at least there's two of us now, you know? like, yay, okay, I'm not alone with this. And what they explained was there's the buses that happen on campus all the time. And the buses run on diesel fuel. And what was happening is we would smell the diesel fuel. And in a lot of places, like in Afghanistan where the mountains are and everything, and the weird twists and the canyons, the acoustics and things, it doesn't really work so well. So a lot of times when the enemy's tanks would be coming, you would smell them first. That was how you would know. You would smell the diesel fuel. Okay? So I'm walking to class, completely peaceful, peacetime situation, life is great. I smell the diesel fuel, and the combat soldier kicks in and is ready to go. Okay? And I don't know why. That's a scary, frustrating place to be. You know, when you're just like, okay, great, this is how it is. So this is where Vipassana kicks in with this. To where, like, okay, we have these sensations coming in. We have this experience. Something tells us something. You guys have probably all had that same situation, like where you have a smell, or you hear a song or something, and it just takes you right back to something, or you start thinking, what is this going on? So what Vipassana is going to do is it's going to teach us what to do with this information. How do we process this? What do we do with this? So, interestingly enough, once I understood what was happening, the very next time when I went to campus, I was walking across, I got the smell of diesel fuel, and I was like, okay, that's there. And I'm okay. You know what I mean? I wasn't upset, I wasn't angry, because I knew, I understood. And as G.I. Joe says, like, knowing is half the battle, so, you know, if you can get there. So, what we're going to do, we're going to do this twice today, okay? We're going to go through a body scan, which is what Vipassana meditation is. And we're going to see the experiences that comes up for us. So when we do this body scan, and I'll kind of talk you through it. We'll do a guided meditation with this and talk you through. Okay. Kylie's heard this because we've done some guided meditation. I have to give my guided meditation disclaimer here for this. I personally don't really like guided meditation because it can be a crutch. You can get to the point to where like, I can't do it unless I have my iPod going, or and we want to be able to do it on our own. But more, I think the reality of it is I just happen to be very bad at giving guided meditation, so I think I get kind of hung up on that. I always feel like I'm a bad phone sex operator when I'm doing this, it's just like, oh baby, you're gonna get so enlightened, and it just doesn't, it goes crazy. So that's kind of my own personal hang up with it. But okay, we're gonna get through this. So if you can bear with my bad guided meditation sex voice, we'll get through this. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and try to sit up straight, okay? The only reason why we really want to keep a correct posture is because this helps us when we breathe. If we're all hunched over and we got the question mark back and everything, our lungs compress. It's really difficult to take deep, full breaths with this. Also, too, in case the meditation hits a little boredom, it's easy to fall asleep when that happens, So if we're upright, if we're aware, a little easier to breathe, a little easier to stay awake with this. All right, so what I'm going to ask you to do is we're all going to sit up straight here. We're all going to close our eyes. And then we're going to take a couple of nice, deep, cleansing breaths. Pushing out all that stale air that's in our lungs. Now if you focus on the very top of your head, what type of sensations can you feel there? Can you feel the air from the air conditioning system move through? Can you feel your hair move if you have hair? Okay. Just be aware what sensations you're feeling there. Now let that sensation lower a little bit to where the area of your forehead. What can we feel there? In the areas behind our ears. Is there any sensation? Is there lots of sensation? Notice how some parts of your body will feel more sensations than others. And lower it down into your shoulders. That place where a lot of people carry tension. Is there anything you're holding there? Is there any tightness or compression? And if so, can you loosen that up? Can you relax it? Then let the sensation move down your back a little bit. It's about the midpoint of your back. Can you feel your ribs expanding with each breath? Before we move down to our lower back, take a moment and focus on your arms. Feel the sensations that's going on there, especially in your hands. Most of the time we have lots of sensations happening in our hands and our fingers. Are your hands tight, or are they relaxed? Now let's pull the attention back to our back and move to our lower back. This is a place where a lot of people hold tension, where a lot of people injure themselves. Is there anything there? And with our next breath, we're going to move down to our hips, the pelvis area, that big joint. Is there any pain? Is there any tension? Are you relaxed? Does the joint feel loose and able to move freely? Then we move our attention down into our thighs. And then we move it down to our knees, those hard-working knees that do so much for us all throughout the day. Then move down to our shins. So any sensation we can feel. Anything that itches, anything that scratches, anything that tickles. And then lastly, we move into our feet. This is another key spot where a lot of people hold tension. Can you relax your feet? If they happen to be relaxed, can you relax them just a little bit more? Find any tension that you have there and let it go. Now, take 1 or 2 more breaths just to center yourself. And then when you're ready, open your eyes and come back. All right. How was that for anybody? Did anything come up for anybody? Any experience or anything?
I try to, I spend a lot of my time, thinking about stuff, and I noticed that when you start with the head, a lot, you can hear, but it was just, the whole super feeling. Something I never actually put attention to.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm aware of unconsciously, and I've noticed it in the past, actually paying attention to it was different.
That's great. Does anybody have any reservation of paying attention to themselves? That's something that comes up every once in a while. A lot of people are really comfortable examining other people, but when it comes to time to check out what's going on with us, we don't like that. So, anything else come up for anybody?
Little pictures came up and stuff instead of scratching them.
Exactly. See, and this is actually one of the strongest lessons that we can learn from Vipassana. Now again, like I said, normally this is taught in a 10-day, very intensive course. So, if this was an M&M, this really wouldn't even be the candy shell. This would be like a little white M that's printed on it. That's about what we're getting. So, but you guys can try this on your own. So, in Vipassana, one of the key concepts is something called anicca, which means change. Everything changes. Nothing is permanent. The only thing that doesn't change is change itself. Or is that how that goes? That doesn't sound right. I don't know. Yeah, the only thing that remains the same is that everything changes, I just felt like George Bush there when I did that, that little fool me once, and but when we have these sensations, we might have something where it's like, oh my gosh, I have an itch. And now that I'm focused on this itch is the most powerful thing going on right now. There's nothing else in the universe. Are you guys okay? Can you hear back there? Or you can, okay, that little thing. But then if we can just be with it for a little bit, if we can just be with it and be like, okay, I have an itch. But I don't have to respond to it. I don't have to start scratching it. I can just be with it. I can be okay with it. Pretty soon, the itch goes away.
I found that the middle of my back, just from me sitting like this, it's super painful. But painful enough that I was focusing on that, and I was like, okay, from the head, when are we going to get to the back? When are we going to get to the back?
When is that going to happen?
Right. So what's going to, and then once I get there, is it going to be feel better, right? I'm adjusting, wait.
All right. So that's a perfect segue to lead us into this next part. Okay. So the second question that we have to ask ourselves with this type of information is, what is this information trying to tell us? Okay. There's a concept that all of our physical ailments, everything that goes wrong with our body, is connected to some type of mental hang-up that we have. Like if you look at the word disease, if you break it down, it's literally dis-ease. We're not at ease with something. So, and this manifests in different ways. Now, I kind of get a little hung up on that sometimes because it sounds a little new agey to me. A few months ago, I kind of struggle with some anger issues, and a few months ago, I ended up punching a steering wheel and I broke my hand. And there was all kinds of like mental things, like repression, blah blah blah, whatever. Okay, but at the base of it, it was like I broke my hand because I hit the steering wheel. So, but when we have these type of lingering sensations that come up, like if we start doing Vipassana on a regular basis, and things, every time we do the exercise, every time we do the meditation, we just lost our power. We've been cut off. Hopefully somebody's fireworks or something isn't going. But, alright, well, this is cool. We'll just be in the dark here for a little bit. Alright. So, when we have a sensation that lingers with us for a long time, that might be something to examine. Like, every time you sit on the cushion, your left knee starts hurting. Oh, there we go. Okay. That might be something to look at. Why is this happening? And if you guys will bear with me for a little bit, I'll tell you an experience that I had at the Vipassana retreat that kind of shows this. Okay, so again, at the Vipassana camp, we're doing 10 days, 12 to 14 hours a day, sitting on this cushion. It's awful. Okay, the pain, all the pain that you have is just manifested like crazy because you're sitting for so long, and we're not used to it. So, as we're sitting, I kept noticing throughout the whole thing that my right hip really was hurting bad. And as I focused on it more, I started realizing that almost every time I injure myself or something happens, that's where I get injured, is in my right hip. That kind of lower back area and stuff. And so, I just kind of summed it up to as, wow, I must have really damaged myself there at some point, and I just keep re-injuring it because I'm aggressive with my body. Okay? So, I'm at Vipassana, and this is on about the 9th day where we've been sitting here and we've been processing this, and I decided this pain just started leaping out of my hip. Just started screaming, pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention. And it didn't matter, any type of scanning that I was doing, okay, let's focus on my head or anything, the hip was just like, no, me. So, I finally decided, alright, what is this trying to tell me? What is this? What information is this trying to possess to me? So, while I was sitting there, I had a memory recall of something that I had basically blocked out of myself for years. So, when I was 18, I joined the Marine Corps, and while we were there, we had to go through infantry training school. Any Marines in here at all? Any service people in here at all? Okay. All right. So, when you go to infantry training school, that's where they teach you how to shoot all the guns and do all the stuff and everything. Well, there's something called an M203, and if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically like a little grenade launcher that fits on the bottom of an M16. So you can turn your M16 in. It gives it the capability to fire grenades as well. So, and it works kind of like a pump shotgun. You open the breech, you put the shell in, you shut the breech, and then you fire. Then you have to do this every time. Well, an inherent problem with it is there's this little tiny catch pin that when you shut the breech, this is what locks it in. But unfortunately, Marines are habitually rough on all the equipment that they use. So this little catch pin gets bent to shit all the time. All right, it just sucks. And so you'll be slamming this thing home, and it's not catching. So you have to slam it home a few times. So what you're supposed to do is, if you fire, like during a training session, if you pull the 203 and you hear a click, like it doesn't go off, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to set your weapon down, walk away from it, wait for about a half an hour to make sure nothing's going to happen, and then go check it. Okay? Maybe even call a ceasefire on the firing line because there's this danger happening. All right, that's the ideal thing. The reality is, nobody wants to be the moron who calls a complete ceasefire and stops a training exercise because you didn't slam the breech hard enough. Nobody wants to be that guy. So what happened is, we're training and the guy next to me had a misfire. You know, we're doing this, he pulls the thing, has a misfire, and just did the assumption, oh, I didn't slam the breech hard enough. You know, I didn't slam the breech hard enough. So he opens the breech, and this grenade falls, and when it hits the ground, it goes off. Okay? So I was the closest one to him, and I got hit with something. I want to say it was his boot heel, but it hit me so hard that it actually knocked out one of my teeth, you know. And so I was covered with this guy. You know, I'm the first one to him. We call a ceasefire. The corpsman runs over, and the haunting thing about this was he was completely coherent. You know, he was basically gone from about the rib cage down. There was nothing left of him. But his upper torso, relatively intact, and he was coherent. He was like, oh, okay, something just happened to me. All right. So, to give you a little backstory on this guy, here we are. Sorry. I'm 18 years old. I want to say he was maybe 19 or 20. And he had just gotten married before he joined. And they had just had a baby. And so his favorite thing to do was to run around the barracks and show everybody pictures of his kid. This was his thing, okay? And you don't want to be insensitive or anything like that, but the reality is like when you see 30 pictures of a baby in a crib, they all kind of start looking the same. You know what I mean? You're like, oh great, here's another picture of the baby in the crib. Well, he always kept these pictures in his wallet. Okay. So I run up to him and I'm holding his hand as like the medics are pumping him all full of drugs. And again, this strange coherence there is happening. And he looks at me and he says, hey Lamb, have I shown you the pictures of my kid? You know? And he starts reaching for his wallet to show me these pictures. And of course, there's nothing there, you know? So I tell him, don't worry about it, I'll find it. He's like, yeah, just can you get my wallet? I want to show you these pictures. Okay. So I'm looking for this wallet that is not in existence anymore. Okay. This thing has been atomized at this point. And I'm looking for this. And in my 18-year-old mind, since I couldn't find this wallet, I made myself wrong for that. I made myself wrong for that. Like, in my mind I let this guy down. Okay? So the last thing that this guy says, they're pumping him full of everything, and he looks up at me, and again, I'm covered in him. So I am just bloody, everything like that. And he looks at the doc. He says, hey doc, can you check on Lamb? I think he might be hurt. And then he died. So up until this point in my life, My entire emotional process was pack it down and maybe someday you'll die. That was the extent of it all, okay? So I didn't have any way to deal with this at all, my friend died in a horrific way, and I felt like I let him down because I couldn't find this wallet. So, but hey, I'm a Marine. I got to move on. I'm a man. I got to move on. I got to start doing this. Okay. So life goes on, and I start continuing, and I start getting pain. I start getting pain in my hip. Now, why do you think the pain generated right here? That's where he kept his wallet. That's where he kept his wallet, and that's where he was going. So this injury kept presenting itself to me, You have some pain here that you need to deal with. You have some pain. You need to heal this. Okay? So once that happened, I was able to process it a little bit. I was able to move on. I was able to forgive my 18-year-old self who thought he was a man but wasn't, to be able to move on from that. So the whole entire point of this story is this is how this whole entire mental blockage presented itself to me, was through this pain in my hip. And after the Vipassana camp, we started talking to everybody, and almost every single person who was at the camp had a similar story to this. Not necessarily the Marines or, an explosion or anything like that, but they all had some chronic pain that they had had for a long time, that they had just kind of learned to live with, that suddenly they had a realization about. This is why I have this pain. So when this happens, our sensations, they can be so overwhelming at times, or sometimes on the other end of the spectrum, we're numb and we can't feel anything and we want to. And I really think this is why a lot of people do drugs. I think this is why a lot of people do cutting. Like when you cut, one of the things that happens is that pain is so sharp, it blocks everything else out. It shuts out everything else,
I just finished the Doors of Perception, which you saw, and yesterday.
You finished what?
The Doors of Perception.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's exactly what he talked about. People turn to cigarettes and alcohol because it's a way of transcending reality.
Exactly. It can be an escape from it. Yeah. A lot of martial artists will lie about this, but that's kind of one of the cool things about the martial arts. Like when you're training and stuff like that, when somebody punches you in the face really, really hard, you don't really think about a lot. And everything else just kind of falls away, and it's just like, okay, I'm all right. And as crazy as it sounds, in that moment you have a little bit of peace. Because the brain shuts off. It just drops off. Everything drops off, and suddenly you're completely free because you're not holding on to anything. Now, I am not suggesting let's all go out and cut ourselves and start Fight Club. Okay, it's not that. But when this pain starts coming up, if we can start processing it, if we can start asking it, okay, what are you trying to tell me? Why are you here? Why are you persistent with this? And hopefully the majority of the stuff that we're having is kind of the impermanent sensations that you was talking about. There's an itch or something and it's gone, and we have to deal with it. But those chronic things that keep coming up. Is there only one position you can sleep in at night? When you drive, does anything hurt?
I've been going through a lot of depression, and at this time in my I've suffered with clinical depression my whole life, and I've always made myself truly miserable. this time, like going through depression, like I'm not making myself miserable, and I'm letting myself go through. Because my daughter passed away like 3 weeks ago, so I'm like trying to go through the healing process, but not making myself miserable about the do it.
Exactly.
And so that's been a whole change for me. Not going to that. And that's what happens to me. My past record is I'll go into depression, then I'll isolate, then I'll get suicidal, then the only thing that brings me out is Cambodia. And I don't want to get, I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
That's again. So I've been really cautious about just being okay, being sad. Like it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, like in Vipassana, there was a really big saying that happened. They would say, "Are you having an emotion, or is an emotion having you?" And there is a big difference there. If you can just be like, okay, here's a problem that we have in our society that I kind of learned dealing with some of my anger management. There's a really big difference saying, I'm angry versus I'm feeling angry. Can you guys all see the difference there with that? Like when I say I'm angry, okay, I am literally connecting myself to that emotion. Okay, I am defining myself by this is who I am.
You are angry.
I am, okay? I am angry. I am. Okay, so them I am statements are really kind of powerful. We got to watch what we say. But if I just say I'm feeling angry, or if I even want to be better, I could say like I'm feeling angry at this moment. Then suddenly it's just a feeling and it's not going to last forever. I have options, I have ways out of this. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this Vipassana scan one more time. And again, just kind of feeling the sensations that we have. And this one I'll try to do a little bit differently. So
I have a question for you.
yes.
So my thought is, you talked a lot about how we're able to get in tune with our perception due to physical realm.
Yes.
Whether that's physical pain or actual stimuli. But I'm wondering, what if it's chiefly psychological, and you can't figure out the external?
You can't figure out the external?
How does that fit into Vipassana?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It kind of doesn't fit in very well with Vipassana, other than the impermanence aspect. Like you can say okay, right now I'm having this emotional turmoil. Okay, right now I'm having this. Right now I'm experiencing this. Even just adding that right now I'm experiencing this to it, rather than I'm in emotional turmoil, or I'm suffering from depression, or I'm depressed, or anything like that. If you can just kind of link that kind of impermanence to it, be like, okay, I'm here now, this doesn't have to happen. Am I having this emotion, or am I having this experience, or is this experience having me? Does that make sense? Kind of takes a little bit of your power back and makes you be like, okay, I'm experiencing this, but I'm also in control of it too. I also know how to deal with this. So okay.
Do you do that by being aware of the thoughts or the thoughts?
Yes, just be aware with it. Be with it. Okay, so with the physical sensations that come up, and I see you. All right. So okay, something's coming up. Here's this. This is happening. I can be with this, and pretty soon it's not there anymore, It can be the same thing with our thought process, too. Just be like, okay, I'm here with this, I'm here with this, I'm here. One thing I try to visualize a lot, you guys, okay, now that it's 100 degrees outside and everything like that, do you ever go out in your car and you put your arm on the seat and it's just scalding hot? Okay, we've all done that and it just sucks. So our natural tendency is to just, pull away and not be there with it, We push it away and we just don't want to do it. But have you ever just put your arm there and let it be? Have you guys ever done that? Try it sometimes. There's this cool thing that happens. Yeah, there's this really cool thing that happens, okay? First off, you realize the pain isn't that bad. You're bearing it. You are enduring what's happening to you. You're having it. And then the temperature will start to equal out a little bit, and you'll find out it's actually quite pleasurable. You know, you're like, oh my gosh, this is warm.
I'm not going to try it.
Yeah, this is warm, this is cool, you know, I can handle it. And just like all of our other things in life, then it begins to cool down and suddenly it's not warm anymore. And you're like, oh, I kind of wish it would go back to being this awful thing that I was afraid of just 3 seconds ago, you know. So does that make sense? Okay. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
When we do this, can we do it in a different position?
Yes. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of new people here, and I'm kind of seeing that some people are doing this. Okay, one aspect about meditation is this is hard enough as it is. Okay, so if you're in pain, like okay, we're talking about the Vipassana and the sensations and stuff like that. You know, when this was going on and we're doing like a 10-hour meditation, there was this thing that happened on about the third day. Okay, because when you're there, you can't drink any coffee or soda or anything like that, you know. So everybody there is having huge caffeine withdrawals. All right? Everybody there is having these massive caffeine withdrawals. And everybody is in massive pain from sitting for these long hours. Okay, and again, we're not supposed to talk to anybody, and we're not supposed to make eye contact. You're supposed to just be, you know, right here with yourself. So we'd have these little breaks where everybody would kind of go out and stretch your legs and walk around and stuff. And it was on this third day, I just kind of looked up at everybody, and it was like a scene on The Walking Dead. Everybody just had their head down. They were shuffling around. You know, they all hurt and everything. And it was kind of comical to experience. So on that, yes, be comfortable. You know, when we're coming here, I kind of talked a little bit earlier about we're trying to get some more cushions and stuff so that people can have. If you need to have a chair, please, yes, take this. Be free. Be comfortable. Don't let anything stop you from coming, like for physical pain. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can't go sit on the floor. You know, we'll work around you on that. Okay? All right, so, dang it. Kind of talked just a little bit too long, so maybe we'll skip that second little. I'll let you guys try that on your own. So, usually what I like to do in these like last 5 minutes or so is just kind of leave it open for questions. If there's anything that is happening that we didn't happen to address during class or anything. So does anybody have any questions or anything about like what we did today or meditation in general?
I have a question about Vipassana.
Okay.
Is it part of the Zen tradition?
No, it's actually part of the Tibetan tradition. So, but which is weird because when you go and you practice it, it's much more Zen than the Tibetan tradition. So it's a little weird. I think it should be part of the Zen tradition, but
Where can we find like more material and resources on it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you go to Vipassana.org, that's where they have like all the information. If you go to YouTube, Sensei YouTube, I call it. Okay. If you go to YouTube, there's all types of videos and guided meditations and stuff. Or if I can do a shameless plug here, if you happen to read my book, Ronin Buddhism, there's a whole chapter on Vipassana about like how to talk, you know, how to go through it, how to practice and everything. So that's there too.
Tell us your webpage again.
TheWorstBuddhist.com.
There we go.
Okay. The Worst Buddhist.
That's on Facebook?
It's on Facebook, and then there's also just a website too. And just so you guys know, like the reason I kind of tell people this, the reason why I call myself the Worst Buddhist is because like when we're doing this, when we start this practice, when we're doing meditation, we're sitting there and we're like, okay, I'm supposed to count the breaths, and I'm supposed to count from 1 to 10. And see if any thoughts are coming in. And I get to about wah, and then thoughts are coming in. You know, we start to think like, I suck at this. You know, this whole peace, enlightenment, everything, you know, like, oh, great, you know. I'm horrible at this. I suck at this. So everybody at some point goes, I must be the worst at this in the world. I must be the absolute worst at this in the world. So when I call myself this, it's just kind of like, hey, we're all in there together. You know, we're all in there happening. So if I can tell you one other thing that's happening in the Buddhist community right now, and then we'll get you guys out of here. Did anybody happen to go to the Prayers for Compassion ceremony that happened this week? Okay. Does anyone know about it? What it is? All right. So let me kind of tell you what's going on in the Buddhist community right now. So the Dalai Lama has his birthday, and all the Tibetan Buddhists and all the monks and everything were like, "Hey, Dalai Lama, how do we celebrate your birthday? What should we do? How should we celebrate this?" And of course the Dalai Lama, being who he is, was like, "You don't, morons." You know what I mean? Like, I'm not anything special, you know, there's nothing to do, you know, you don't make my birthday a holiday, that's kind of dumb. But the Buddhists kind of were insisting, and the monks were insisting, like, look, we have to do something for you, you know. And so what the Dalai Lama said, he was like, fine, if you guys have to do something, why don't all of you just say the prayer for compassion for everybody else? Okay? And the prayer for compassion is, may all beings be free from suffering. Or if you've ever seen any type of Tibetan writing, there's a famous Tibetan saying that says, Om Mani Padme Hum, which means this, may all beings be free from suffering. So if you've ever seen it, chances are that's what it says. Okay? So the monks, being who they are, decided, all right, let's do it. Let's all get together and say the prayer for compassion about 10,000 times. Okay? So what they start doing is, usually, like, this started last Thursday night, they have a big ceremony where they all start going. And then until this morning, I want to say it was about 11 o'clock, they stopped. They just kept chanting this over and over and over. Om Mani Padme Hum. May all beings be free from suffering. Okay, it's very, very easy. So just in the spirit of this, I thought we could all maybe do this 5 times. Just say this 5 times. Okay? So the saying is, may all beings be free from suffering. Do we have that? Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll say this all together. Let's do 1. May all beings be free from suffering. 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 Great, thank you. So on this, there's a whole bunch of these that you'll hear. You know, may all beings be happy. May all beings be joyful and things. So you'll hear all these, and none of them are wrong. They're all just, it's in the spirit of this. So if I can, I actually wrote a little book here. It's called The Little Book of Loving Kindness. And in this, all that it is these types of little prayers. May all beings be free from suffering. Some of them are funny, some of them are serious, but they're all kind of meant with that good intention. You know, like some are like, may all beings be free. May all beings be the people that they hope they can be. You know, may all beings find the toilet seat in the position they think it should be in. You know, so in closing, if you guys want, just come and grab one of these. You know, I'll give you a book and stuff, and so you can take this out. Then we'll start this again next Sunday, or the first Sunday of next month. So, and if you go, like I said, if you go on the Facebook page, go check out the Worst Buddhist. There's all the information on the class and everything like that. And if you have any questions, fire them off, and I'll do my best to answer them. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend and have fun. And thanks for sharing this with me. So. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren.
Let me hand these out. Let's see, how can we do this here?
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Oh, there you go. Thank you.
And let me hand you one. You okay? Let me hand you. Can I give you guys a book? Oh, you sure don't have to.
Take something. You know I have to take something.
All right, thank you.
You know how that
There you
goes.
go. Thank you. Can I hook you up with the book?
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. And Phoenix and Dan. There you go. Yep. We got you. Okay, we're gonna